Welcome back again. This is Chris Moriarty from Carifree. One of the things above all that I need in my life is, of course, consistency. And one of the things in dentistry right now is a very, very hot topic is remineralization. There's a lot of thoughts, feelings, and opinions on which direction people should go, but I'm also one of those people that will say, you know what, we need to just get down to the fundamentals and actually walk through the chemistry of whatever it is that you're doing. When we talk about remineralization as it relates to the Carifree system, everything that we do as a common thread is basically hinged on keeping that pH nice and high. So when we look at pH and we look at how it relates to demineralization or remineralization, everything starts right here. When anybody eats or drinks anything, the pH of their mouth is naturally going to drop, as you're seeing on the left. It's going to get down below that critical pH of 5.5 for a few minutes, and it's going to come back up to that resting pH of 6.75 in about a 20-minute swing. That's a normal, it's a healthy thing to have happen. Where it becomes more problematic is what happens on the right. When you have a patient who has either a limited salivary flow, has a cariogenic biofilm in their mouth, they might be on a lot of medications, whatever the situation is, the body has a really hard time of bringing that pH back up, at least in a timely manner. So this is where we're getting a lot of net mineral loss. This is also when high acid producing bacteria just really start to thrive, and the more they thrive, the more the acid is introduced, the longer they stay at those danger levels. So one of the things we're going to look at is salivary flow, because when you break down someone's saliva, what you'll actually find is not only do they have an abundance of calcium and phosphate, they actually have what's deemed a supersaturation. You actually have tons of it. So if that's the case, meaning if they have all these minerals, then what's the issue? Why are they getting net mineral loss? Well, that has everything to do with the pH. That's what we call a selection pressure. Now, as we walk through this, I don't want you to focus on the compounds on the right. I don't want you to focus on the compounds on the left. Just look in the center. Look at those pHs and look at those arrows. The way that we most easily explain this often is if we've got water on the right and ice on the left, there's really only one thing that's going to facilitate that conversion, and that, of course, is temperature. That's called a selection pressure. So again, think of it this way, no matter how much water we add, if the temperature is not right, it will never turn into ice or ice into water. So keep that in mind as we walk through this. Now I'm going to start off at a very high pH, keeping in mind that your resting pH is about 6.75, so a pH of 8 is obviously going to be high or artificially elevated, but we're getting very strong remineralization. It's all just going back to the ionic properties of these minerals specifically. At a 7, things are still looking pretty good, but once we get to a pH of 6, this is where you're going to start to see some change. You can see that bioavailable material actually start to dissociate, so this is where you're obviously already going to start to get some spotty outcomes. Now, once we get a little bit lower to a pH of 5, this is where things get pretty bad, because we're now below the critical pH of the surface of the tooth, being around 5.5. This is when calcium and phosphate are getting pulled from the surface of the tooth, and you're now getting active cavitation. Now, I know you may be a little bit difficult to see from here, but right below that red arrow is a little green arrow. That's fluoride. Fluoride still has a decent opportunity right here to do its job, meaning those crystals can withstand a little bit more acid. They're a little bit more durable, so there is a case for fluoride, at least in a chemistry perspective. But watch this. Once we get to these lower pHs, of a pH of about 4, basically all bets are off. Meaning at this point, we are only going to achieve net mineral loss. So what's this mean in terms of practicality? That if you have a patient who's sitting at these low pHs or who's a frequent snacker where they're really in these low pHs for a prolonged period of time, it doesn't matter what we do. Meaning you could pack their mouth full of fluoride, any sort of calcium-based derivatives, and you're just not going to get the outcome that you'd hope. And the more offices that we visit, that's sort of being reflected in the treatment outcomes that they're seeing. They're having really great stories and really high levels of success with certain patients, but not another. Or in one area of the mouth, but not another. But because again, we need to be looking at what's ultimately going to drive the success of this process, and that of course is pH. So I'm never going to be one of those people that says, oh, you have to use this or you have to use that, because generally that's not going to be the case. We just need to make sure that we're taking into account all of the variables and make sure that it's staying consistent with the chemistry. So think of it more as a 1-2 punch. So as we elevate that pH, as we bring things back into that healthy level, not only can you more effectively control your remineralization, but it now can act as a catalyst. There was some interesting research coming out actually last April where they talked about using sodium hypochlorite to wipe out that pellicle, boosting that pH, of course, and then bringing in all of your fortification in terms of your calcium or fluoride. Again, more control is going to be the name of the game. So controlling that pH is ultimately going to be one of the biggest predictors of whether or not you're going to be successful in that effort. So take into account all the things that are happening into your office and just make sure that they're consistent with the chemistry. And while we looked at those pH of 4, those certainly are very low, but just keep in mind that some of the things that we've been using every day, from different fitness waters to even over-the-counter therapies, low pH in that range is certainly not out of the question at all. If you have any questions as to how this kind of plays out, or you'd like to see some more of the research, certainly give me a contact or visit our website at carifree.com, Carifree, or our number is 866-928-4445. Because again, we're here to help, and we just love to share our information and just make sure we're putting together the best caries management protocols we can.